the two programs a bit. Okay, so how did they start? Well, as you probably know, Smart Recovery started 26 years ago. The program was created by a team of psychologists led by a chap called Dr. Joe Gerstein. He's still going strong at 80 odd. He was a consultant in pain management, and he was really upset by the number of people who got addicted to opioid pain relief and ended up in need of recovery. And the only thing to help maintain people's recovery at the time was AA. So he created a team of fellow doctors and psychologists and people in recovery, and they wanted to base Smart Recovery on evidence of what works. So it's based on cognitive behavioral therapy, rational emotive behavioral therapy, and motivational interviewing. And since then, research has been done on the Smart Recovery program, and probably the most outstanding piece of research took place in Australia. There were something like 3,000 people interviewed in several Australian prisons, all who had been through the SMART program to maintain or start recovery whilst in prison. And the research showed that attending 6 or more meetings results in much more positive outcomes for those people. So that's really quite something. The Smart Family and Friends program was based on the work of Dr. Robert Myers, and he's a guy who has written a book called Get Your Loved Ones Sober Without Nagging, Pleading or Begging. And he developed a program called CRAFT, Community Reinforcement and Family Training. And some research that has been done on the CRAFT program has shown that family members who went through the program and use it to look after themselves are more likely to influence their loved one positively towards recovery compared to people who hadn't used the program. So, as you, I am sure, well know, Smart Recovery is based on 4 parts of the program: tools to help people build and maintain motivation towards recovery, tools to help cope with urges and cravings, tools to manage thought, feelings and behaviours, and tools to help live a balanced life. So they're the 4 pillars of the programme. The Smart Family and Friends programme has got similar categories of tools for people who are the family or friends or family and friends of people who are either in active addiction or in recovery. And those tools are self-care, positive communication, maintaining healthy boundaries, and disabling enabling. But both of the programs share the Smart Recovery values. So values are really important to us because the thing that attracts many people to the SMART program, and what attracted me to come and work for SMART, is the fact that we're not powerless to change. We can change. Everyone has the power of choice, and we can choose to change behaviours that are unhelpful or harmful to us. And we respect each other. People are not their behaviours, so SMART doesn't use stigmatising language like addict or alcoholic or any other stigmatizing words. If somebody wants to refer to themselves as an addict, that's fine. But as Smart Recovery and other participants in a meeting, they're not words that we use because we want to respect everybody. People are empowered to choose what works for them. SMART is not a program where one size fits all. We're all unique. We have different ways of thinking and seeing, and meetings are places where tools are demonstrated and people use them and figure out if they work or not. And if they don't work, they move on to the next tool. And no one is required to stay in SMART meetings for life, unlike other mutual aid programs. So once people find that they're in a healthy and a positive and a balanced lifestyle, they move on and they pursue other goals in life. So you're not going to meet people, no, I'll rephrase that. It's very unlikely that you'll meet people in a SMART meeting. You will go, well, I've been sober for 26 years and I'm still coming to SMART meetings. That if that happens, it's most likely because they're actually the facilitator of the meeting. So what I'd like to do now is to share two tools with you that are equally useful in both the SMART program and the Family and Friends program. So I'm going to share the ABC tool. So I imagine if you've been around SMART for any length of time, you've heard of the ABC tool. And if you're a facilitator, which many of you are, you will use it in many, many meetings because it is incredibly adaptable. And it's all about the way we think, and thinking patterns that are unhelpful and thinking patterns that are helpful. It's based on CBT, which is about examining our own thinking. It comes from a quote from an ancient philosopher called Epictetus, who said, people are not so much distressed by events as the view they take of them. And we don't often think about thinking, but this tool helps us identify more helpful and rational thoughts about any upsetting situation. So it's called, so we move through the little alphabetical thing here. So the first thing is that A stands for activating event. What happened? What are the circumstances? What was the single most distressing thing about it? And in a minute, we will do an example from two people's points of view. And then the second, B stands for beliefs or thoughts. What was I thinking? What was I telling myself about this situation? Was I making an irrational demand? And we think quite a lot about demanding words like must and ought to and should have. And what was the consequences? How did I end up feeling or behaving as a result of my beliefs? What was the unhealthy negative emotion or harmful behavior? And then the tool helps us to actually question our own thoughts or beliefs about the situation. Do they make sense? Are they helpful to me if I act on them? And then I can answer the question and we end up with an effective new belief. We find an alternative rational thought or belief about the circumstance at A and find that there's a more balanced way of thinking about it. And you could do this if you're a person in recovery about something that happened in your recovery. You could do this if you're a person who has a friend or a family member who is either in an active addiction or looking to maintain their recovery, or you can just do this in everyday life. Like, what happened? I got a parking ticket. What was the single most distressing thing about it? I felt so stupid. I turned up, I was only 5 minutes late and there's the bloke writing out the ticket. And that you can go through the whole thing and calm yourself down and find a rational new thought instead of tearing up the ticket in front of the chap and storming off and going away and shouting at all the traffic. So this is an example of the same circumstance and two different people's views of that circumstance. So it's entirely made up. These are not people that I know, but you can imagine somebody in recovery. I went for a walk with my friend and we saw a pub and everybody's out in the beer garden. It must have been weather like we're having today. They're having a laugh and I can't join in. It's so unfair. If you look at the family and friends side, I went out for a walk with my friend and we saw a pub and everyone's out in the beer garden having a laugh. And I can see that this is really hard for my friend. If she gets drunk again, I'm going to be so upset. So you can see same circumstance, but kind of mirror image of what they're thinking. And this is how versatile this tool is. So the person in recovery, The thought is, I really ought to be able to have a drink and have fun like everybody else. I can't stand being left out. It's unbearable. I could just have the one. Now I'm going to work through this one now. So you can see from the thoughts, they're feeling angry. They're feeling envious of all those people who are sitting there having a drink, having a good laugh, and they're likely to have a massive urge to drink because they feel it's completely unfair and they ought to be able to have a drink. But if they stand back and go, okay, let me work the tool, let me use it, let me examine my thinking. Ought I to be able to have a drink? Can I not have fun without having a drink? Can I really not stand being left out? Is it unbearable? Will I have just the one? No, I never have just the one. Actually, I really want to have a drink, but I don't have to. So you can see how the language is being moderated away from the demands, the emotional demands. I don't like being left out, but it won't kill me. I can stand it. Will I have just one? No, I never have just one. And so then we can see you moving on to a healthy envy and anger. Oh, I'm a bit annoyed. There are all those people having a drink. I wish I could have just one. And actually, I have got an urge to drink, but I can manage it. And I don't want to drink. And I'm going to make the suggestion we go into the beer garden and have a soft drink. So then from the friend, so their thought process is, this is awful. I'm going to die if she gets drunk again. I can't believe I took her past a pub. I must get her away. And so the consequence of that is the friend becomes stressed because they're trying to control their friend's behavior. So if that person then goes, okay, am I going to die if she gets drunk again? I really want her not to drink, but I'm not going to die. I may be disappointed if she gets drunk, but I can cope. Going past a pub is something that may happen from time to time. It's normal. Can I get her away? No, it's her behavior and it's her choice. So the different behavior is to take some deep breaths to relax. Remember the hula hoop, which we'll have a look at in a minute. And remember, no one can control somebody else's behavior. And then I'll suggest we go in the beer garden and have a soft drink. And this is, it's a bit cheesy, but you get the idea of how very versatile this tool is. Now, there's a lot of people who are here today who've got a lot of experience of using this tool. Does anybody want to give some feedback about how useful you find it in facilitating a meeting?
Yeah, I can.
Go on then, Craig, that'd be great.
It's a really, really powerful tool that we use quite a lot in meetings, and it just kind of helps put things in perspective. We sometimes use a shorter version of it, so we sometimes use like the A, the D, and the E. It's like a quick sort of like out and about fix me kit, where you can just kind of like, you know, realise what the acted event was, dispute it, and then replace it with the new effective belief. It does take a bit of work to get your head around it, but we do find it's very powerful, and it just really kind of puts things into perspective. And then you can kind of dispute those irrational beliefs and replace them with rational ones.
Yeah, brilliant. Yep. Chrissy, do you have
found that it's not only a lot of the smart tools are not only ones that can be used in smart meetings and in recovery. I know that you know, I had a situation where I almost EBCD'd my sister the other week because she had a car breakdown at the very front of the queue of a car wash, and she was in a complete state. And I literally went through it, and I said to her, okay, you are getting the car washed today because your meeting is tomorrow. Therefore, the car has broken down on a Sunday, not a Monday, you know, sort of taking. So it is, you know, that's something that always stands out for me, that smart tools can be adapted for everyday life as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there, Jenny. I've been doing the exact same as well. I think that's the best way to learn the tools, is to apply it to your own life. So the ABC tool, that's the way that I actually did learn it, was just to apply it by my own life, but it wasn't for anything in recovery. It wasn't family and friends. It was just like a life skill to learn, really. And I once I got it, it was like a light bulb moment. But I really like the way that this has been put out today, because then the new effective belief is shared by the both friends as well. The two of them want to go into the beer garden for a soft drink. Do you know that? I really like that. And then, but because of the at the beginning, they're all up in arms and everything like that. It's a really good demonstration, that, Angie.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think using that as an example, I think I've got a few clients, especially like, the weather's been nice, and obviously people sitting outside the pubs, and that, I think that's probably a good example really to use, isn't it?
Yeah, very much. And yeah, and it is hard if you're not drinking to see everybody apparently having fun. But if you can change your thinking about it and think that you can join in, you don't need the alcohol to have the fun. It just gives an entirely new perspective.
Absolutely.
Anyone else want to comment?
I've seen it used once or twice in family and friends, not so much. Possibly if there's a family or friend member that's got an event coming up, if we ask for an example, like there's a family event coming up, and she's absolutely convinced that her husband's gonna drink, and it's going to be a complete car crash, and it's going to be this and it's going to be that, kind of the anti-awfulizing. That's useful to use it for their own thoughts.
Yeah,
and how that they can rationalize and maybe calm the situation. And we kind of obviously don't put the words in their mouth, but we can work through that with them. Depends what stage they're at. If very often you'll get, well, I don't need to think about this, I know what's going to happen. So you kind of have to, so it all depends how you present it, but it is a great tool, and I've used it a lot in my life.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. Yeah, it's just incredibly flexible.
Yes.
Because you just like talk about the situation and what's upsetting, and then I think we're just so not used to thinking about our thinking, and I think that's the skill. It's like the pause button. You can just pause things, step back, look at what you're thinking, and go, oh, okay. And like Kelly says, get that light bulb moment and be able to change things and move on, and know that it's not as awful as you thought it was.
Well, I think one of the first tools is why should I change? And that's always we know that's going to come up if they're new on, they think they're on there because we can tell them how to change. So it's all a learning curve, but once they kind of get it, that actually it's quite empowering.
Oh yeah, totally.
You're not powerless.
Yeah.
You're not all powerful, but you're not powerless.
No, you're not powerless, and it does give you a measure of control, at least over your own emotions.
Over your own emotions, yeah.
Totally agree. Cool. Okay, the next slide is about the good old hula hoop. This is another tool that is so completely useful. Chrissy, can you read this in your sleep?
Yeah, I'm out of the hundreds of meetings that I've done face to face and online, every time,
yeah,
and people want to go over it. It's almost like an affirmation, isn't it? Phew, okay, it's in the hula hoop.
Yeah,
that's all right then.
Okay, so I'm just going to read out the hula hoop tool because it is so useful. Remember the hula hoop you had as a child. Imagine that you have one around you right now. It magically hovers around your waist all the time. Now imagine that everyone else has one around them too. So often we spend time and energy on things we can't control. And then we get mad at ourselves for failing to do what was never possible in the first place because it was not within our control. Okay, you might say, but what's that got to do with a hula hoop? Think of the hula hoop as your very own sorting tool for separating the things you can and cannot control. In other words, if it's in your hula hoop, you can probably control it. If it's out of your hula hoop, you cannot control it, and all efforts to do so are wasted. So what is in your hula hoop? All of those things on the list. Your body, your thoughts, your actions and behavior, your opinions, your values, your dreams and wishes. What is out of your hula hoop? Everything else, other people, their thoughts, actions, the weather, politicians, etc., etc., etc. What is yours is in your hula hoop, and those are really the only things you can control. Everything that is not yours belongs outside the hula hoop. Now, this might sound simple, but you'd be amazed at how often you find yourself in someone else's hula hoop. Imagine that for a minute. Picture yourself merrily hulaing away with your own hoop. Then picture yourself hulaing 2 hoops. Ah, you may say, I can hula 2 hoops, and you might be right. But can you hula 2 hoops with another person in one of them? And I think that just tells us what we can and can't control.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's in both programs. It's something that it's just like the very first idea, isn't it?
Well, I think the reason it works for both programs is, yeah, it's kind of obvious that if a family member or your partner or a close friend is in active addiction, you'd love to be able to control their behavior and just get them to stop because you can see the damage it's causing to them. It's equally valuable, I think, for people who are in recovery and can see other people in addiction. And very often people come to meetings really worried about somebody else and wanting to talk about somebody else and the difficulties they're having and why they're not in the meeting, but they can't control that person's behavior. And sometimes I think people like to focus on somebody else's behavior because then they're not actually looking at themselves and the behavior they can change and control. And it just becomes a bit of a distraction. So this is a really good way of just reminding everybody of exactly what we can and can't control. So I don't know if anybody wants to chip in there.
That's something Deb, I experienced, just the example that Angie's used there at some of the SMART meetings, because they would form quite close bonds with each other, the participants, and there would be some, oh, she's not well, I saw her last Wednesday, and oh, I think this, that and the other. Would that be fair to say that sometimes happens there?
Yeah, definitely, because obviously, you know, what you try and, I mean, to be honest, I haven't used the hula hoop as a tool, but obviously, you know, I do sort of speak to clients and obviously say, you know, you've got to concentrate on your own recovery. You know, other people, they've got to want to make that change. Yeah. So obviously using that as a tool is a good way of doing it, isn't it?
Yeah, it just takes it out of the personal, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's the same for everybody, and I think that's always helpful.
Yeah.
Very adaptable as well. So we kind of rearranged the slides slightly so we could use it for the COVID situation. Because obviously there's lots of things that are out your control. At the time, you couldn't control when you're going to get your vaccine, if there was going to be a vaccine. And that seemed to help a lot of the participants.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Yes, it is very adaptable. Yep.
question from me, if you don't mind, Angie, about hula hoop as well.
Oh no, it's Jenny's turn to answer the question.
Oh,
Go on.
okay, so I love hula hoop as well. I think it's really good for helping like manage anxiety, and it's actually something I'm teaching like my 10-year-old as well at the moment, you know, about not getting involved, or that awful phrase guilty by association in the playground or whatever. But what do you advise people? You know, you can be quite happy in getting that theory yourself, and I've got my imaginary hula hoop and I know kind of where I stand. But how do you deal with other people who are kind of constantly trying to come so close to you, sort of shoving their hula hoop almost, you know, in yours and encroaching yours? It's kind of fine if you know where your boundaries are, but what do you advise other people on how to, in a healthy way, inform other people who keeps basically trying to shove their hula hoop towards yours, so to speak? You know, how do you let them know what the boundaries are? And because that can be quite stressful in itself, isn't it? Is sort of, people do tend to want to place their problems on other people or burden other people with them. Yeah, what do you advise people with for that?
This sounds like a question for Chrissy to me. I bet
Chrissy,
healthy boundaries,
yeah,
Chrissy.
Well, yeah, boundaries obviously, but it's how to put your boundaries across. You don't, you know, we've got a perfect slide for this. First of all, recognize that someone's trying to get in your hula hoop. As we all know, people in active addiction have very poor ideas of boundaries. So where the family and friends are doing all this work doesn't necessarily mean that their loved one is. So great if they're working in parallel, but very often they're not. So this is about you're shouting, you're screaming, you're yelling. Pick your time, even if you have to write the sentence out. Look, what you did last night, I felt really uncomfortable with. You know, I felt as if you were pushing into my space, and this is, I don't want it to happen again. And that's it. Leave it at that, really. Not even with any consequences, because consequences, you know, unless you can carry them through or sustain them, you've got to think very carefully about that. But absolutely, a person has a right to express how they felt at that time. At that time, you're going to scream and shout, aren't you? You're you know, coming into my space. I can't. It's. I don't know who said press the pause button. Was that Angie?
Yeah.
You know, actually, I'm going to walk away right now. I'm going to remove myself from the situation till I can think this through.
I think for me as well, it's all about signposting is a really good thing as well. Knowing where, because you are not the fount of all knowledge.
No, you're not.
All of this kind of thing. And if somebody, be it a participant in a meeting or someone like that, wants to try and come and tell you a lot of stuff that is not your area of expertise, it's not for you to be getting involved in, knowing correctly where to sign, because they say, well, it's not, you know, that isn't kind of my area, but this is the right person to contact, and having the right things to signpost is something that I would say.
Yeah, most people want to be acknowledged and heard.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you've got the answer, it doesn't really matter. If you work in customer care like I have, it's okay. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
I need to think about this, but I'll come back to you. Maybe put something in the chat where maybe you can get a bit more help. But please stay with the meeting, and hopefully you can pick up a few more tools. You've kind of diffused it.
Yeah.
Without saying you've got no right. I mean, that never works, does it?
But yeah, so what there's a way to vocally or somehow explain that you have that, because you can't assume that these are sort of imaginary boundaries, so not everyone is going to just automatically know, are they? So there is an element of actually having to kind of say it, really, for want of a better word.
Yeah, and the feedback we get, if a family member come on the meeting and they're so excited they want to share this boundary that they put in, and it's worked, like the other person, the loved one, has gone, oh, okay, like you've not responded in your usual, your ABC, all this kind of responses that we have, and it's diffused everything. We all know how our mind works when we get angry. It just blows up, doesn't it? Everything comes out, and we find ourselves in the same cycle of poor communication, and they're still going into our hula hoop. I always say, for as long as it takes someone in recovery to kind of, for the penny to drop, which can take months, it's not done with one slide. That's what we find. And they keep coming back until they go, do you know what? It's working. It might not have stopped my loved one from using or gambling, but I feel better. I'm in more control. It's a happier home.
Yeah.
It's a
And that-
constantly evolving. Sorry, Chrissy.
So, yeah, go on, Craig. Love it.
Sorry to cut you in there. I just said it's a constantly evolving tool as well. And what Chrissy said is spot on, because we control our actions, our thoughts, and what we say to people. We don't necessarily say the right thing to people. So you're constantly learning it. Do you know what I mean? So people's reactions might come back that you don't expect it. You
Yeah.
counteract it with someone else. So a lot of these tools we use in conjunction.
Yeah.
Like the ABC, for example. I know we haven't got into this, but like the stop tool is hugely powerful in our recovery meetings. And yeah, it's just something, it takes time to learn and, kind of embed it and work out what your responses are going to be, because every action is going to have a reaction, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
We try and encourage kind of respond rather than react. And I found just by looking on the Smart Recovery website that they've adapted the DEADS to the family and friends. Have you seen that? Amazing. Delay, distract. So that went on straight away, and they love a new tool.
Yeah.
And the same with the stop thing. I'm going to adapt that to the family and friends. Pause, stop.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all evolving, like Craig said.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
I think one of the hardest things for obviously a family member or a friend is obviously to realise that they are enabling them to use drink or drugs, isn't it? And I think that's a massive thing for them to sort of recognise that when they first come in to get support.
Yeah, and it's not an easy thing to recognise. I mean, were you in a face-to-face meeting, there'd probably be a lot of tears, and which there are in the online meetings. That's okay. We can, that's normal. But it's oh my God, I didn't realise I was doing that. Well, that's okay. I mean, they're not there to be punished. They're there to be, look, try this.
Yep, absolutely. There's no judgment. That's the whole point. It's about empowering
I've
people
done it
and helping
all.
them to change.
Angie, I've done it all.
Yeah.
I even packed my bags a couple of times. I had nowhere to go.
Yep. That's cool. If there's any other questions or anything you want to reflect on, I think the thing I'd like to end with then is to thank our amazing volunteers. We're doing this because it's Volunteer Week, but we really, really are grateful. Smart would be nowhere without our volunteers. And I know you know that you make a difference, but we want you to know that we know that you make a huge difference to the most stigmatized group of people, which is people seeking recovery from addiction and their family and friends. And the support and the hope that you give people that change is possible, that they're not powerless, that they can use their power of choice, that there is support in the meetings to learn tools to help them change their behavior is absolutely amazing. I had the privilege of asking some questions of a guy who goes to a meeting in Scotland about his recovery. And he basically said, Smart changed my life. I got to such a dark place that I hung myself. But what I didn't realise was the cord I'd used stretched. And by the time my toes got onto the floor, I knew that I wanted to live, and SMART has completely changed my life round. And I imagine if we were to talk to all the participants who come to meetings, there would be many more stories like that, that SMART has literally saved people's lives. And it's not every day that you get to be part of that. So it's a huge, huge thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, Angie. And I echo all of that as well. I've been saying to people, you know, SMART's a national charity and there are 8 of us on the payroll at the moment. And then we have about 120 of our own Smart Recovery peer volunteers. So, you know, the numbers speak for themselves. We just couldn't do any of this really without you. You know, our volunteers are our full workforce in effect. So I've been saying exactly the same thing. SMART wouldn't exist in the UK if it wasn't for its volunteers. So thank you.
Absolutely.
And, you know, you're reaching as a collective group, you're reaching around 4,000 people a week at its peak. So yeah, well done and thank you very much.
Thanks everybody, and I didn't break anything.
Well done, Angie. You've not broken the internet. Good girl.
Not today.
Well done.
Shall I leave it recording for Kelly's? Just going on through. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd like to say thank you anyway for Angie and Charlie being here. Craig, obviously, he's an amazing coordinator. There at the flick, you've only got someone go online and says I'm in trouble or I can't, you know, my internet keeps breaking the meeting, and he's there, and CJ. So that was a really good move. Thank you, Craig.
Thank you, Chrissy. And obviously, it doesn't go without saying that it's the amazing team that we work with as well.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, our meetings get up to a maximum capacity at the moment, which just goes to show the sign of the times. We get up to 100 people on meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? We've got a small pool of volunteers, facilitators. Obviously, got Chrissy and all the friends and family guys.
Yeah.
They just do a fantastic job, and I couldn't do it without their support either. So just a big thank you.
Fantastic.
Thank you. Are we ending now?
We've got Kelly.
Well, Kelly, it's over to you. Do you want to let people know what you're going to do now and they can choose?
So hi everyone, I am Kelly. I'm the Smart Community Coordinator for Central Scotland, and I've put a couple of wee slideshows on for just to hear from our volunteers, what they think about SMART, what SMART's done for them. And I've also got one of our volunteers that works in Forth Valley to do a little Tai Chi video for us. It's really nice and relaxing. I was just about sleeping when I was sitting watching it. I should have just got up and started doing it. But really, this is just to my wee short video is just to say thanks to every one of you, just to echo in what Charlie and Angie said as well. Without our volunteers, we wouldn't be Smart Recovery UK. So thanks very much. And I'll pop on just a tiny, I think it's only like 1 minute and 20 seconds of this Tai Chi video. If it works, please work. so in Smart Recovery, as all of you probably know, we do promote like relaxation techniques and everything like that. And that was the purpose of the Tai Chi video. Our volunteer that was demonstrating the Tai Chi, he does a lot of spiritual things. He does a lot of other different as well as Smart, it does other recovery programs and that as well. And you can see in the background that he's promoting where he works as well. So the last few weeks, I've been busy getting in touch with volunteers and asking them if they wanted to drop us a wee video. And every one of them, yes, of course, I'll do this, I'll do that. And I got 2. So we'll not be here for very long. But Jenny very kindly got one of her own volunteers to send us in a video. So if you
Might
don't
be a
mind.
familiar face for Deb, actually, this one.
There we are. So it's a really nice video. It explains Smart really nicely as soon as I can get it to play. So it's okay for me just to go on and play? Yep.
Hi, my name's John Owen. I'm a recovery problematic drugger. Not a great fan of labels, which Smart encourages not to use labels. I first got involved in Smart around about 3 years ago. I'd been through fellowship, AE and NE and things like that. That just didn't really stand out. I didn't really feel I benefited from the groups, and I also try to do it on my own as well, which is probably where I feel the most. Smart offered something different. That 4-point program really appealed to us. I worked through the Smart, how it works, attended Smart groups, and then done my facilitators training, which was really, really sort of eye-opening for us, being able to facilitate a group and not just attend a group. I found that really, really, really productive in my recovery. I felt that I went up a level in my recovery. Recovery's been good for us, but Smart's been really good for us as well. It's really helped us. And again, I use them 4 points, them 4, balance meaning life means is probably the one that stands, coping with, all them thoughts, cravings, urges, things like that. But for me, living a balanced life was probably the most important step, the one I tried to focus on quite a lot. And again, the Smart recovery helped me complete that. And again, it's just for the day. Smart recovery really, really helped me. So thank you very much. Hope this helps.
That was really lovely hearing from is John Owen as Jenny.
Owen. Yeah, Owen. Do you remember John, Deb?
Oh yeah, I've never seen him mind since he probably left the service.
Yeah,
But,
he's
nice
co-facilitator at my new face-to-face meeting.
Yeah.
So your lady that's coming along, hopefully you'll see him on Monday. Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
He's
doing really well, isn't he, John? And his
with
recovery.
veterans, yeah.
So our next slide does take us on our veterans volunteers for so the last year these 2 gents have been working together and building up on the online meetings for veterans only, and the comeback from the 2 guys have just been absolutely phenomenal. I mean, the veterans, they're all looking to do the West Highland Way together, and it's not really just like a meeting for them. They've actually become like a band of brothers again, and it's really, really nice to see. So I'll let these guys tell you a wee bit more about it.
Let's just recover. I'll just introduce myself. So my name's Sean. I volunteer for Smart Recovery, but I used to be the Smart Recovery Community Coordinator. We had an idea last year about creating a veterans only smart meeting, but we started it in February, I believe, 2020. But of course the pandemic hit, so we had to transfer online. But since then, the Veterans Smarts crew, we help lads signpost elsewhere, but we've also got a nice team of volunteers. So I'm just going to introduce you to Johnny. He's a big help the Veterans Smart Recovery. Johnny, you want to say anything?
Thanks, Sean. My name's Johnny and I'm a volunteer for Smart Recovery, specifically Veterans Smart. I'm a veteran myself and found recovery in 2014 and then got involved with Smart in December. And since then, it's just been amazing to be a part of it and watch it grow. We started off with one meeting with very little attendees and very quickly grown. We're now at a stage where we've got 2 meetings a week with regular attendance, and it's just amazing to be a part of it. It's a wee community. What we've got going here, and a great bond between the guys and the guys. The benefits that the guys are taking away from it is just amazing to be part of and watch.
I was going to say as well, where two's been veterans, it has been amazing to watch, like the veterans just like flourish. Do you want to do one anonymous example?
Well, I can we'll take the one most recent then is one of the guys who has been involved in music and he got aired on BBC Radio last night it was, and from that he's then got a regular spot on BBC Radio, so that's just one of them. Small achievements along with massive achievements, getting guys just to be able to go to the gym, get out walking, start integrating into the community again, and we all seem to help each other along each step of the way. We've got a WhatsApp group chat as well, which is massive, so we're in constant contact with all the attendees 24/7 basically every day, and that's a good morale booster for the guys, getting up in the morning and being able to be in contact with our group members each day. Amazing.
No, that's brilliant, Johnny, and honestly it's great to have you involved as a volunteer alongside myself. We couldn't have done this without you. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Sean.
It's so lovely to hear from our volunteers and hearing success stories, and this is what actually makes me love my job. It doesn't even feel like a job. You're just constantly getting this kind of feedback, hearing from different volunteers and what they're doing, and it's so refreshing to hear. I love it, absolutely love it. So I'll just pop on the last video. I think this one's just a minute or two, and this is another Tai Chi, but he's got a wee partner in crime with him today on this one. Oh, where's the play button? There we are.
so relaxing, isn't it?
Oh, it's absolutely amazing. I don't know if it's just like the movements or anything like that. I love Tai Chi. I've never actually done it. I just sit and watch, but I get so relaxed just sitting watching it. But I would just like to end my wee slideshow there and say thanks very much for all your support towards UK Smart Recovery. We're always here for support. Jenny, myself, Ian, we've got Charlie, we've got Angie, our admin office and that as well. So you can just drop us a line or a wee phone call. We're always here. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Kelly.